Hi, so I thought we'd have a little bit of fun today with some trees and stripes, or possibly stripes and trees. So up here behind me you can see I've already been having a little bit of fun. I love stripy fabrics and I'm always looking for different ways of using them. So I've used all the stripes horizontally. Some are very nice even stripes, some are not quite so even or so definite, some are multicoloured and multi sort of randomly stripy somehow, and then we've got some tree trunks again in slightly different thicknesses and heights. And I just thought a fun little stripy tree forest might be just what it was that you were wanting to make. So I just thought I'd show you how I go about it. I'm not going to be doing the sewing this time, I am fusing them on. I'm sure you know how to do the applique part, maybe with a blanket stitch, maybe you want to do just raw edge straight stitch, maybe you want to use some decorative stitches on your sewing machine. Now there's a whole new thought. So what I've done is go ahead and get some fabrics ready. So these are some stripy ones. These are the ones I've used that are on behind me. So you can see that they're kind of fun, they're kind of nice and different colours, different texture type stripes. And I've put some paperback fusible web on the back side of them. So I've just got a strip that's about 4.5 inches wide. It's very approximate, it didn't need to be exact. The trees are not exact, so I just thought I'd show you, and random is good, so they can be a little bit less exact if you want them to be. So on this nice stripy piece here, I'll show you how I'm going to cut that. So I would cut one of the larger trees. So because I'm approximately 4.5 inches, I'm going to set it so that it sits either side with a centre line approximately down the middle. So I'm using the lines on my board to help me with this. And then I'm going to position, so I've got these, I should mention first, I've got these cut at slightly different lengths. Some are 8 inches, some are 9 inches. Just to give me a couple of different heights of the trees. You can choose if you want 7 inches, 6 inches. But we'll get a large one, and we should get a couple of small ones out of this piece here. So you'll see that as we go cutting. So I'm positioning this so that there's a line on my board that comes more or less down the centre of my piece of fabric. If you line up along one of the lines going that way as well, that's quite helpful. So I'm just going to then lay my ruler so that it goes to where that line pops out at the top there, to where there's a line in here, and I'm going to cut along there. So the base of the tree is going to be approximately 4 inches because we're going to be cutting through that line, and then when we, without moving everything, we can now turn the ruler and come back, and so that it'll intersect at the top there and get you a nice point, and then it intersects at that same line that's sort of 2 inches away from the centre. So we've got a 4-inch base, and then I'm going to cut that up there. So if you don't move anything, everything stays exactly where you want it, and then you've got a really nice tree shape all ready to go. And then you've got these pieces left over, and it seems a shame to waste them. So what I've been doing is lining that up there so that that 2-inch, sorry, it's a bit over 2 inches wide, so that that point comes to an intersection on the markings on the board. And then if I line up this line so that it's straight with the line on the board, and then if I put the ruler on here, and where it intersects this centre line and this line here, so I can just trim off that little bit, and then I can cut and get one of the smaller trees out of that side. Well, I can also, of course, get another one out of the other side. So you may end up with more trees than you realise, because these trees just keep on growing. So we're going to cut through the intersection of that centre line that comes up there and the little one there. So the same thing on this side. So these two will be fairly similar, depending on whether you cut in exactly the same places. So that's kind of fun. So you may just want 3 trees. If I bring this up, you can probably see. So out of just one piece of fabric, that 4.5 inches by, I think it was 9 inches, you can have 3 little trees if that's something that you just want to do. However, I'm going to go ahead and cut some other colours. So this one's only 8 inches, same sort of thing. I'm sure you don't need to see me cut loads and loads of these, but we'll just do another one. So I'm coming through this intersection here with the centre line up there. Oops. And we're going to, oh, I'm not doing very well today. And same thing, swivel without moving your fabric, and you'll find that everything sits nice and easy for you there. So I'm going to come up there. So there's another large tree. We'll do a couple of these bright ones so that we can see where we're going. So we're going to come here to the centre. I think you get the hang of this now. You could layer them and do a couple at a time if you wanted to. I get a little concerned when they've got the paper on them as to whether they'll slip. So I tend to just cut singly when I'm doing this. But it's nice to have a couple of these brighter ones in amongst our forests. Forests are not always known for their colourful trees. However, mine are quite colourful. As I said, some of these are 9 inches high, some are 8. And then if I'm wanting those smaller ones, then they'll come out of those side pieces. Quite fancy a smaller one here. Now the other thing is, if you're working with a background that doesn't allow you to show things up quite as well as you'd like, you could put a second layer. I've done one of the trees up here. Not sure if you can see that. Behind this nice bold stripe, I've got a second tree shape that's just a bit larger than the stripy one, in a black. It's got a little dot on it, just to give it a little bit more emphasis if you were working with a background that didn't show things up nicely for you. That would be just another option. I'll just keep cutting while we're chatting. So I think something this time of year, we're thinking of things that are a little bit festive, and trees are often used for that sort of thing. However, I have discovered that trees grow all year round. So I don't necessarily think of them as only for the festive season, but you may feel differently. In which case, that's absolutely fine. Just thought we should have a few little trees here, and we'll set out our forest any minute now when I've finished cutting these. So if you just wanted even shorter ones, of course you can shorten the pieces that are left over. You could make much taller trees if that's what you were after. Just pop your paperback fusible web behind your fabric, and then you've got plenty to work with doing that sort of thing. So I'll bring over the iron now and show you how I've done the positioning. I'm just going to bring the ironing. Oh, before I do that, I'll just show you the stems. So with the stems, the same thing. I've put some paperback fusible webbing on the back of a piece of fabric. I'm going to use the same fabric throughout for the stems. And then I've just cut a couple of different sizes of stems. So I've cut some that are 1/2 inch wide, and I've cut some that are 3/4 inch wide for the bigger trees. So really it's the same sort of thing. Cutting narrow strips like that needn't be challenging. Don't have a hugely long piece of fabric, so you can just lay that, again, line up with your board. And if we were going to cut a 1/2 inch one, I line up my 1/2 inch marker with the half away line on the board, and just hold it nice and steady, and you should be able to cut yourself some nice strips for stems. So I've just cut longer strips, and then I've cut them down shorter. And then for the 3/4 inch one, just the same thing. Line up your 3/4 mark using the markings on the board, and you can get a nice 3/4 inch wide strip there. And then we can just cut those to different lengths. So what I've been cutting is slightly random, but I guess there's a little bit of method in it. Maybe these narrower ones, I've cut some that are 4 inches. I've cut some that are 1, 2, 3, 4, probably 5 inches, and then whatever's left are some of the others. And then for the shorter ones, I've cut those to be about 1.5 inches, because mostly they're not tall unless you're wanting to make them tall. Of course, this is your forest. You can make them as tall as you'd like to do. So we can just cut some 1.5 inch pieces there. I've already got some there. So that's a pretty good way of getting some stems, and I quite like the one colour for everything. You may prefer to do different colours, and that is entirely your choice. So I'm just going to bring the iron over. Now I've got these nice woolen mats to iron on, and I wouldn't normally suggest ever using an iron anywhere near my cutting board. I'm going to lay these on top. However, I do know that because they're wool, the heat won't go through. It would perhaps if I was doing sustained hours of ironing, but in the short term, these wool mats are excellent. The heat doesn't penetrate. Wool is such a good insulator that we can do it this way. So what I've ended up doing is, perhaps I'll try and do these so that you can see them from your side. Some trees. So my strip of fabric is 12.5 inches wide, and I've just got it the full width of the fabric at the moment. I most likely will be trimming a little bit off, so I won't go right to the edge. And when I've popped the stems on, so I've roughly placed my trees fairly randomly. I don't know that there's any rhyme or reason in how they go, unless your forest is a very orderly forest, of course. Mine is not. And then I've got some smaller ones here to come in between. And a couple more here. Mix them around a little bit. And you just want some of those up and down. There's really any number of ways that you can position these sorts of things. Where do we want this guy here? So I've got my stems. So you might want to peel the paper off the stems, and really the only order that I've put into it, as far as any sort of measuring or anything goes, is that I was going to position the stems all the same distance away from that bottom edge. So I just use my ruler and I've positioned them 1 inch away from that raw edge. I can see through the ruler. So I'm just going to position my stems so that the bottom edge sits next to that ruler there, and I can iron that in place. So I've taken the paper backing off that piece there, and then I can iron my tree on. But I found it was quite good to iron a few stems on first and then come back and pop the trees on. But you kind of need the trees handy so that you know where they're going to go. So same thing, I've popped my stems approximately 1 inch from that edge and iron it in place. Even for these taller, skinnier trees, I might have a couple of different lengths here, hopefully, yes. So same thing, peel your paper off your backing, which leaves the glue, of course, on the right side, or the wrong side. Pop your stem again, so all the stems are pretty much lining up where we'd like them to line up. So I might bring this one a bit closer over. So this is why you need the bigger ones handy, or have them all in place so that things end up where you want them. So I think that's kind of fun. So peel that one off. I might do this one. So I think you get the hang of it. It was more to show you that stripes can be a lot of fun. Of course, you could make the trees out of anything you choose. They don't all have to be stripy. I just thought they were fun in the stripe, and thought I'd show you another way of using stripes, because I know that stripes can be a little bit daunting at times. So now I could position there's no reason not to put the trees on as you go. I just kind of like to do it this way. So you want the tree trunk to be more or less in the middle. Now there's a little bit of room to move. You might want a really short trunk. You might want a longer trunk. Really, they're your trees. You get them to grow how you'd like them. And if you've ever looked in a pine forest, because I'm sure they're pine trees, some of them are tall, and some are short, and some are skinny, and some are not. So you can just make those tree trunks work however you'd like them to. So I probably don't need to go ahead and do the whole strip, but I just thought you'd like to see just an idea to how you might use some stripes in a slightly different way, in a fun way, quick and easy to cut. You don't need a template, you just need to use those markings on your board to help you line things up. And so I'm going to continue on putting my trees on, but I just thought that would be a fun way to show you how you might use some stripes horizontally for some trees, or you might make some trees and use some stripes. Thank you.